Hello, my treasure hunting friends. Well, this is episode 3, and we're going to use a real life experience. Actually, it's the site I'm working on currently. It's a totally incredibly amazing site, huge. And this is the box in the pond that brought me initially to the site before discovering 29 other locations on this 4-hectare property. So I'm going to share with you some of the things to look for, because all of these sites, they start with a story. So the property owner or somebody who knows somebody, cousin, uncle, whatever, and, they say, I know this guy who blah, blah, blah. So all of the following story, you have to figure out, does it make sense? Is it, logical, reasonable? You consider such things as the local geology. Would it make sense that the Japanese would dig in the ground here? Or hundreds of times they say, oh, I found a box. And it 99% of the time turns out to be a rock. Or even in one cave on a small island, the cave was a natural cave, beautiful, absolutely beautiful, with stalactites, stalagmites, and limestone deposits all over that looked like a box or a turtle or different shapes. And they took this all as Japanese, not hundreds of thousands of years of limestone deposit. So you really do a lot of wild goose chasing, chasing these stories. So I'm very analytical. I take a scientific approach. First of all, does 2 + 2 = 4? Does it make sense? And on this case, there were so many things in the story of this 35-year-old farmer and his father, and they stood on this box fishing, when he was growing up and so forth. And okay, that makes sense. There are no stones in this area. I'll show you some photos. I'll actually take you to Google Earth Pro, show you a little bit about it. Very powerful tool, very helpful. And I hope you can pick up a few details. So on the story point, typically, basically the way I say it is that everybody wants a treasure. Everybody wants a treasure under their house, in their yard, in their farm. Everyone wants that. So they will have so many stories. Now, I'm not talking about scams. I'm not talking on purpose that they're trying to get money from you. Yes, that does exist. And an absolute no-no is when somebody says, well, yeah, if you give me 50,000 pesos a month, I'll let you dig on my property. Okay, have a nice day. Bye-bye now. So, that definitely walk away from that. They're just making money by allowing you to dig there. So, yeah, that's a definite no-no. But anyway, you have to be able to figure out, and that was when I was working with the government as like an official treasure hunter capacity, that was really my main function, was to sort out fact from fiction and made up stories or things that did not make sense. So problem solving, deductive reasoning, figuring out, does this really make sense, or does this sound like bola bola? Does it sound like, just a made up story? So anyway, on this one, it kept getting better and better and better, and I'll show you why. Let's use a real life example. This is actually the site where I'm working now, this amazing site with 30 deposits on a 4-hectare property. And as a foreigner, you're trying to make the decision, does this story make sense? Is it realistic? Is it logical? You consider the geology, the topography, the historical stories regarding the location, and put all these things together and do a little more research and some scanning, long-range locating, etc., and make the decision. Do you want to finance it? Do you want to get some people together? Do you want to find some equipment? Do you trust the property owners and the people involved in the project? So there's many things to consider, right? So that's why I want to use this particular true site as a good example. So again, these are my opinions. These are the way I work. Doesn't mean everyone has to do it that way, but maybe you can pick up a couple ideas anyway. So this site, the initial factor that brought me to it was meeting a farmer who lived here in the house. I'll use my finger as a pointer rather than the mouse. And he told me that he was maybe around 35 years old. He and his father used to go out into this pond here and stand on top of a box, a cement flat surface, smooth that they would stand on and fish from. I'm like, well, that's interesting. So here's where you first consider geology. Are there large boulders? Are there big stones or rock clusters or groupings, outcroppings in the area? So you look in streams to see where the water has naturally cut along in different areas to see, are there stones? Are there rocks that could possibly be mistaken as a box? And I've heard hundreds and hundreds of times, yeah, there's a big box that we found, or we went in a cave and there's a box, or in the creek is a box or a cement surface. And it's just a natural rock formation or a bedrock. In this case, there are no rocks. The largest rocks are, basically an inch, maybe 2 inches. So there's no boulders. So that's a good sign. If they were standing on something that looked like a rock or cement, that it could be. So, okay, they got my interest. So, of course, you want to listen to the story more about the area. And I did more research with some of the surrounding properties. And on this side over here, some years before, as they were widening this road, a bulldozer hit a cement object in the dirt. And the owner of the construction company, he shut down the project and came with a crane, lifted the box up on a truck, and then he proceeded to buy a lot more cranes and excavators, etc. On the south end of the property, Chinese two businessmen came over and said they wanted to start a banana farm, and they brought some large excavators, track excavators, which you don't normally use for banana farming, and dug up 2 boxes and then took off. And then on the north side of the property is what looks to be very much a man-made hill, maybe 200 feet long, 50 feet high, and it had a central core collapse of about 25 feet, and it's maybe 60 feet long or something. So it looked like a bunker collapse. It wasn't a landslide at all, not at all. It's simply a ground collapse where the whole center of the hill fell in. So on 3 sides of this site are confirmed collections or retrievals, and then a possible bunker on the north end. So all of these things are in the consideration. So now let's use Google Earth Pro instead of long range locating and scanning and that part. Let's first go to Google Earth Pro. So this is not Google Maps or just Google Earth. Google Earth Pro used to be a paid service, but now it's totally free. So very helpful. And what I really like is you can go back through the years. So there's 6 or 7 photos from the Landsat, Copernicus 13, and some of the others, where they would show over time back from 1985 until 2022. So there's 6 or 7 photos taken. Some are too dark, some are cloudy, but in 3 of them you can actually see the box. So this is the amazing part with Google Earth Pro, what I really like. So here we move in, and here's a little pond, and this is the general location of where the farmer pointed when we were standing on the road, right in here. So a gray structure which does not look like anything else, not any of the shoreline or anything, doesn't match really the geometry or the coloration of any of the surroundings. So again, it grabs a little interest. So how big was this thing? I mean, on this image you can't really, you can give a guess maybe, but how big did the farmer say? He said, well, it's about 4 feet wide and 6 feet long. Okay, that's fair enough. That makes sense. And that was a typical size, 1 meter by 2 meter box and that. So that happens. So on Google Earth Pro, a nice little feature up here is a ruler. So let's measure the box and see how close that fits the human witness, the living witness testimony of this area or this particular object. So it's a little bit hard with this pointer. I wish they had like a mouse point. It would be a little easier. But we put that on one corner, and then we go down and pretty close. A little bit of an estimate, but we got 6 feet, 5.85 feet, so 6 feet. How wide is it? Well, let's take that same corner there and check out the width. And let's try it again. And it's being a little bit hard-headed. But, yeah. So, yeah, it's like 4 feet. So, you know, the 6 by 4 feet. You know, when you first look at this photo, you don't really know, is this 10 feet? Is it 20 feet? How big is it? And then you take the measuring tool, boom, 4 by 6. So it matches what the witness said. Also, another good sign. A nice little feature of this ruler too is you can take the measurement and you take it on an angle, or you just draw the line out, and it gives you the heading. So you get your compass direction. So what's interesting here is the box is basically positioned north, south, east, west. So the 4 sides are facing cardinal points on the compass. Another good sign. So all of these things considered make the story more interesting. Next steps in doing some confirmation of the box being there in the pond was I walked around this whole area with the ray finder, my tool of choice for such occasions. And if I stood here, of course it pointed straight there. If I was on this side here, when I went around on this end, it pointed back to this. So from 4 different angles, it just gave, it was no question. So that was also a very good sign. Then I went out and waded out in the water and used a small diameter auger and drilled down on top. And so the box is about under, it sunk, by the way, when maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, when some of the guys, the farmer and that, went out and started messing around the box, and then it burped up a giant air bubble and sunk down a couple feet anyway into the silt on the bottom of the pond. That is not unusual at all. So the box is not visible in any satellites now, but this is from a couple years back, 2020, so that makes it, yeah, pretty cool. People often ask me, how do you estimate the volume of what that box might contain? Well, both the Eyewitness as well as Google Earth Probe indicates that the box has an exterior dimension of about 4 feet wide, 6 feet long. Estimated depth might be 4 to 6 feet, so let's say 5 feet. If the box is, let's say, 12 inches or 1 foot thick, the cement, then the interior remaining space, you deduct that wall thickness from either side, so that leaves you with a compartment that's maybe 2 feet wide and 4 feet long, and let's say 3 feet deep. Well, you know, just multiply that out, and it gives you a pretty good number to multiply the specific gravity of gold, which is 19.32. So basically 19 tons per cubic meter. So you got an interior space close to a cubic meter. Yeah, not knowing exactly how they have it stacked in there, but anyway, it's yeah, it'll buy you a lot of ice cream. So one final closing note on should you accept a project at a site or not. Something I hear very, very often is, you know, when I ask them, why do you believe something is here? And very often, more often than not, it's, well, I had a dream last Wednesday and the dream very clearly said that I have a box of gold under my bedroom, or they had some type of vision, or the white lady is a very common one. That's kind of a, how should you say it, like a supernatural superstition. This white lady, a ghost-like figure, which speaks to people. So for whatever that's worth, yeah, you might not want to start digging and buy equipment based on those kind of stories, right? So again, using just common sense seems to be a big help. But anyway, I hope, sorry for talking so much, but I just want to share with you, I don't do these professionally. I'm not making it with all the bells and whistles and fancy things, but just trying to share some things that I've come across, and I hope it helps. Take good care.